I think it is for a couple of reasons. I think probably people in Scotland are typically more overweight than they are in England, and therefore they feel like a beard is going to hide their fat face. The other reason is that there is nothing more dramatic than a ginger-haired guy with a big ginger beard. And the third reason is it's just a bit colder up here, so you want to try and use every bit of fur you can to maintain warmth.
I think it does help. I think the last 2 points are very interesting. Number two, definitely a red-headed Scot with a big beard. That's pretty dramatic, mate. Yeah. It's a good image. You can't go wrong with this. And I do think most people look better with beards than without. I mean, it's hard to look at someone, you know what I mean? He's gone one way or the other. He's gone bearded and then non-bearded, and it looks, I don't know. It just looks better in my opinion. I don't know what people think. Beards, yes, no, folks. Let me know in the comments. Anyway, welcome everybody to Brain Food Live on Air. It's episode 346. We're all over the map in terms of sort of what numbering system we're at. We're gonna breach 350 by the end of the year. And welcome everyone to this show. It is in fact the start of a 4-part series where we're going to look back on what's happened in recruiting at the over the last 12 months. December, I mean, it's November now, I know, but we're moving into December. And it's traditional for us to basically have a look back and see what's going on with recruitment. Today is the year where is the session where we're going to review talent technology, what's happened in TA Tech this year. Loads of exciting things. Get your thinking caps on, and make sure you join the discussion with us to have this chat. Okay, let's do some sound checks before we go any further. Folks who are in sort of the crowdcast, let me know in the comments whether you can hear me okay. Just drop me a comment on this. Thank you, Jim Beresford. If you're watching this on LinkedIn, I think a bunch of you might be. Let me know whether you can hear and see me on LinkedIn. And if so, do let me know. I don't think I'm on LinkedIn for some reason. Did I screw this up in some bizarre way? Let me just quickly check. Got to do dual phone here. Yes, thank you very much. People are saying they can hear and see me, which is good. And I don't think I'm actually broadcasting this on LinkedIn. Yes, I am. Here we go. Fine. It's moving. No worries. We're all good. We're all good. Okay, let's get on with it. And happy Thanksgiving to all of our American friends as well, who should still be on their holidays, by the way, which is fantastic stuff. So great to see everyone who is tuning in, and thank you for our American guests who are going to join us later. That's Kyle Lagunas and George LaRock. Okay, before we go any further, we have to thank our sponsors, because without our sponsors, Brain Food Live cannot stay on air. Every single episode is sponsored in 2025. In 2026, it looks like every single episode is going to be sponsored again. And there has been no more consistently supporter of Brain Food than our good friends at Greenhouse. So, of course, everyone should know Greenhouse by now. One of the leading ATSs in our business the last 10 years or more, and they're constantly coming out with some very cool innovations, which in fact I do believe Kevin Ryan might join us and tell us a little bit about. No reason for me to hog the airwaves. I've grabbed 10 minutes of Kevin's time and just dropped him into this. So Kevin, I've just added you onto the show, and here you are. There he is. Kevin Ryan.
Everyone, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you great, Kevin. And great with the uniform as well. I love the branding. Totally on point. Love it.
Yeah, as a marketer, my perspective on the beard thing is, I think as you get older, when it starts graying, it actually ages you, so you need to trim back. But in my heyday, I would have had a proper beard going on, So you need to move with the times too,
That's really interesting, Kevin. I do disagree, though. I think the salt and pepper is also okay, as long as you're not like Santa Claus. I think obviously that's a different story. Salt and pepper, I think, is fine. But anyway, Kevin, great to see you. Welcome to your debut on Brain Food Live. Why don't you quickly introduce yourself, Kevin? Who are you, and what it is you do?
Yeah. So hi everyone. I'm Kevin Ryan from Greenhouse. I head up marketing for international markets. For those of you that aren't familiar with Greenhouse, we're obviously the hiring platform that believes structured processes are better than all the chaos we have out there right now. So if you've ever run a hiring cycle, obviously you know that's true, and that's before any of this AI disruption. Today I want to talk to you about the two biggest headaches we've identified in hiring right now. We've used our own data and a new survey that just dropped of over 4,000 job seekers and hiring managers across the US, the UK, Ireland, and we included Germany this time around. For these 2 headaches, I want to offer some form of guidance or next step you can take to make it better. So Hung, yesterday for a bit of fun, I was thinking about a good analogy for this spot. I love a good analogy, and my usual go-to is nostalgia. So think board games, TV shows, books from the 90s, noughties, that kind of thing. So I want to put you on the spot for a second. Is that okay?
It's totally okay. There's nothing I do about it, is there? So I'm on the spot.
It's happening now. So if you were to describe the current state of hiring, are there any like childhood games, books, TV shows that come to mind as an analogy? Folks in the chat, I'd love to hear your answers as well. While you're thinking, Hung, I met with some colleagues in the office yesterday. They suggested Hunger Games was one.
I'm going to go back even further, mate. I'm going to go back even further. For the folks who are really the OGs, do you remember a cartoon called Dungeons and Dragons?
Absolutely.
That was brilliant. I love Dungeons and Dragons. And you know how they started the intro? The intro is always the same. It's this bunch of kids go to this fairground ride and they jump onto the roller coaster. And the roller coaster goes into some vortex and the vortex throws them into this fantasy world. I think that's basically candidate experience, mate. Like roll on the roller coaster, you can't get off. Before you know it, you're in it. Oh no. Yeah. So I just thought that straight away.
There. Yeah, I've got another one. Mine is Flash Gordon. You just don't know who's on your side. You don't know who's an enemy and who's a friend. Same could apply for Buck Rogers, I guess.
Right. What have we got in the chat? Mousetrap, Squid Games, Buckaroo. Buckaroo is a good one.
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones. Yeah.
I think Nicola there with the Squid Games reference, she's just trying to make herself younger, isn't she? She's saying, yeah, I only remember cultural references from like 5 years ago. we're time warping back 40 years here.
I might age myself with this one. So for me, hiring today is basically a giant game of Where's Wally? Remember that one? You know, the Wally picture book game? So my kids still love this now. They still adore it. But only instead of striped shirt characters, recruiters are trying to identify the right candidate in this messy sea of applications. And how I see it is there 2 big challenges in this game. You've got the top of funnel chaos, which you're probably going to be talking about later. And you got number 2, candidate misrepresentation and fraud. So we're finding it harder to find Wally. And here's the real kicker. When we do find Wally, it's not even Wally anymore. And unlike the books, there's no answer key that you can flip to at the back of your ATS to solve it. So I want to chat about a couple of ways that Greenhouse are working to solve some of that, if that's okay, Hung.
Totally, mate. I mean, you shared. I'd be very interested to know actually, because you sent me an email just before we come on. There was looked like some interesting innovations there. So yeah, I'd love to know more about that, Kevin.
Good stuff. So according to the survey I mentioned, and we're going to talk about candidate fraud here a bit. 91% of hiring managers have caught or suspected misrepresentation in 2025. And this one is like mad interesting. 18% of candidates have tried a deep fake or alternative persona. So 18% of candidates are openly admitting to that and saying it's part of their process now. So awareness of this issue is rising too. So 50% of hiring managers say that candidate authenticity is their top concern. So basically, like I said, sometimes Wally isn't even Wally anymore. So to help with this, enter Greenhouse Real Talent. So it's the first link that I shared earlier in the chat. This is our cheat sheet for the hiring game right now. So it validates, identifies, confirms work history, and surfaces trustworthy candidates right inside of your ATS. So it's like giving recruiters X-ray glasses. And finally, you can see through the red and white stripes and you know who's real now. So Greenhouse Real Talent features begin a phase rollout in early 2026. And you can sign up with the link I shared to the waiting list. And I've added that to the chat.
So quick on Kevin, this is a tool that employers or customers of Greenhouse will be able to basically identify potential fraud risk in the candidates that are coming through, right?
Correct. A spectrum of that as well, where it's like someone who's using multiple IP address, for example, could get flagged, or someone whose identity could be questioned, or some firms who want to say, you know, we want to use a provider like Clear or another provider to have like full-on verification. That could be an option. Not important to as many, you know, to some companies, but very, very important to some other companies. So there's a spectrum of different optionality around how to think about fraud and misrepresentation.
Very, very interesting. I think that's going to be mandatory, folks. I mean, at some point, you can't just open up sort of the hiring funnel and have people populate that. I think that's naive in 2026. We have to have some sort of solution. So great to see that integrated into ATSs like Greenhouse. So fantastic stuff, Kevin.
Cool.
Excellent. I kind of misshared another thing there, haven't I? Early. So what's this other link I've shared here?
No, get it all up there. It's all good. It's all good. So the second headache that I want to talk about was this top of funnel chaos. So the other side of the equation, is job seekers. So duplicate applications, multiple logins, missing feedback, and candidates struggling to stand out, drop off, and recruiters, which is obviously what we're interested about, are losing visibility. So what's interesting in the survey is 2 in 3 hiring managers say they've been more involved in the hiring process than last year. So despite all the tech that you're mentioning and you're going to be covering today, we're still more involved. 39% of recruiters are conducting more in-person interviews than last year, and only 21% feel confident they aren't missing great candidates. On the other side, candidates, 55% surveyed suspect AI was used to evaluate them without them being told. So of course they're using AI. I would be, so they should be. AI is enabling job applicants to maneuver their way through the application process, sometimes in shadier ways, some ways totally viable. And recruiters are defaulting back to interview as a core process in screening. There's more manual vetting and there's more detective work going on. So the question I'd pose, and something for everyone to think about, is, are we being explicit enough with candidates about how, where, and when they can use AI in the process? So the second link that you shared, Hung, and I put it in earlier as well, is that Greenhouse, for our own hiring, we've published guidelines and expectations around AI use. So you can find these guidelines in the second link. And folks, feel free to use that, borrow, steal from that. It's just some form of like direction to candidates about when they apply, how they can use it when they're applying to your company. And
I think that's also going to be table stakes as well, isn't it? I mean, you've got to tell people, signal something. If you say nothing, then you're actually putting ambiguity into the process, and you kind of deserve what you get in terms of how candidates use or misuse AI if you say nothing. So have a policy, get it out there, and just explain to people, hey, this is how we expect you to use it, and this is how we're going to use it. And then, you know what? That is going to elevate the experience on both sides. So, fantastic stuff.
Yeah. So to conclude, what else are Greenhouse doing about these challenges? If folks haven't heard of mygreenhouse.com yet, it's worth going to. So this is our portal for candidates. So one profile, one identity, one place for candidates to track all their applications. The result of that, so candidates obviously get a smoother, less frustrating experience. We're getting a lot of positive commentary about that on various forums. But recruiters get cleaner, more reliable signals. So the hiring process is just less painful for everyone, I suppose. So if real talent, like I mentioned, tackles the trust problem, then My Greenhouse tackles this experience problem. And back to the analogy, I think of it like turning a messy whereas Wally page into a game where the stripes actually stand out and everyone's invited to play fairly. So thanks for having me on, Hung. Excited to talk to anyone in the chat or whatever about finding Wally in your hiring process, or just to commiserate about how messy the game has become. And you'll find me over on LinkedIn if anyone wants to connect afterwards.
No, great stuff, Kevin, and thanks for that update. And by the way, part of the conversation we're having today is exactly how companies like ATS, sort of in the ATS category, are actually innovating against this. It's not just about having amazing new point solutions; it's the innovation that's happening with core platforms as well. Brilliant stuff, Kevin. Stay with us in the chat. Make sure you contribute to the rest of this conversation. But thanks so much for giving us an overview and an intro, and a really good segue into 1980s nostalgia as well. So fantastic stuff.
Keep the beards going. Cheers.
Good stuff. And by the way, a very interesting chat on how things are named. But yes, I didn't realize Wally and Waldo were the same thing, but there we go. All right, Adam, let's get on with it. We kind of eaten a lot of time here, but we've got to do a review of the newsletter real quick before we start bringing on some of our guests to talk about TA Tech in 2025. Did you read the newsletter last week? And if so, give us a couple of things that you thought were interesting, mate.
I did, and I really enjoyed hearing about Greenhouse's real talent feature, because this is clearly a big issue, so much so that ByteDance, the Chinese tech company, has got a very innovative way of checking if somebody's real. So on video interviews, they're going to say to the candidate, hey, close your eyes and answer this question, right? So that they can tell if they're not looking at something and reading it on the screen. I think this is very lo-fi, I think you described it as, but it's a good solution.
It's a good solution. I don't think that's policy. It looks like it may just be a local recruiter taking the opportunity to verify, but it's an example of what people are going to do, because the trust level is completely evaporated on both sides of the fence. I mean, basically, candidates don't trust employers. Employers don't trust candidates. You're going to start throwing these solutions in. And the closing eyes thing, it is just a bit of like local DIY solution, because human beings are still using eyes essentially to figure out, get extra information off screen or whatever, teleprompting in, close your eyes and answer the question. I think that's pretty legit, mate. Although that will probably last for about 3 months before you get some sort of permanent eye-opening tracking software. I think the tracking software is one of the very earliest ones around. So yeah, very interesting one. But yeah, obviously we need to improve trust. It's as simple as that.
Candidates will get some sort of eye technology which can permeate the eyelids, perhaps, as well. Anyway, so the second one I want to talk about is your poll on skills-based hiring. Now, I know that you're not an advocate of skills-based hiring as a thing. 58%, I think it was, said that skills-based hiring is going to be more important in 2026 than it was in 2025. 7% said it's going to be like all-encompassing and the only way that they hire, I think. Yeah. So I'll just give you a reason why I don't think that you're correct to be negative about this. 2026, there's going to be more jobs disappearing out of the white-collar workforce because they're just not needed, and there's going to be a lot more new jobs created which have never been done before by anybody, right? So with that lens, I think every company is going to have to work really hard on internal mobility and skills adjacency and establishing which jobs that people have done are going to set them up nicely for being able to do this new job we've never hired for before. So I can see that it is going to become more important, although I think the social mobility aspect of it is gone for now. I don't think CEO cares about that.
Yeah. So what you're saying is skills-based hiring, initial motivation was social mobility. It was to try and get away from credentialism, which is basically very class-based, particularly in the UK. Academically, you go to certain schools, you end up going to certain universities, you end up getting certain jobs. And that pipeline was very, very negative for social mobility. That created skills-based hiring, or at least give it a surge here. New motivation, no. And I do like your new motivation, Adam. So perhaps I might change my mind on this, on my current posture with regards to skills-based hiring, because I think you're right. New jobs, how are we going to even look at new jobs? We're going to have to look at adjacency. What sort of career paths has produced the sort of skills or behaviors that we think are more likely to make you a viable candidate for something else. So yeah, anyway, most of the community are on board with skills-based hiring. I think it's going to be more relevant. So there you go. I remain pretty marginal on that. I do think it's going to be more relevant. I just don't think it's a good idea. That's basically my position. Anyway, give us one more, mate, before we get into it.
Okay, Naval Ravikant is the founder of AngelList. He's a big shot in the US tech scene. He's got a podcast. Although I watched it on YouTube, I'm not sure why I clicked the link and saw it on YouTube, but there wasn't anything on it. It was just a podcast, basically, restreamed there. He said that you sensationalized it by saying it's something along the lines of recruitment should never be outsourced or something like that. What he was actually saying was, first 10, first 40, first whatever number it is, first meaningful number of people into the business, the CEO should have an active role in hiring every person, because you want self-motivated, low ego, genius type people. You want high skills density. Is that the phrase? And you want people that can do lots of different things, undiscovered talent. I don't think he's saying that the CEO should be the one, or the founder should be the one that's going out and doing all of the sourcing, all of that sort of thing. But they should be very, very highly demanding about who they're bringing in those first up to 40 hires. They should be curating people ruthlessly and firing people fast when it goes wrong. I couldn't agree more. You absolutely work with recruiters to get shortlists and things like that. But in the first whatever number it is, the CEO, the co-founder, one of the co-founders, or both of them, or all of them, should be involved.
Yeah, it's very triggering for recruiters to ever hear CEOs talk about recruiting, and because they're always going to come in with non-PC stuff. They're going to come in with gut-based hiring and all this type of stuff, and weird heuristics that everyone thinks, oh my god, how biased is this? But you got to respect the fact that these people have built very impressive businesses, and we are their employees. You know what I mean? So at some point, we have to recognize what they've managed to achieve. Having said that, I don't think I did sensationalize the guy, because he did literally say this. And he even went into the point where even the sourcing side, he reckoned that CEO should do that. Now, I think you're right. There's a big separation between recruiting that recruiters get involved in when it goes beyond sort of that early founder stage. And it's scaling recruitment. That's probably where we come in. And we're trying to basically turn the CEO's perspective into a scalable system. So maybe we're still, maybe perhaps no need for us to be that triggered by it. But still, it was a very interesting conversation to be had, particularly as it kind of was in direct conflict with a lot of the things that we previously would be saying, you know what, this is just rock solid. Anyway, very interesting. Watch the podcast. I mean, it's very important, in fact, for us to subject ourselves to information that might clash with our initial kind of vibes on it. We need to be challenged on things, which is why, of course, I have invited Alexander Chukovsky onto the show, because he's guaranteed to trigger people. And he's our first guest we're going to bring on. So Alexander, let's be having you. We're going to be talking about the state of TA tech in 2025. Super interesting. And I'll allow Alex to obviously introduce himself, but I just want to preempt his own introduction by saying I think Alex is one of those madmen that is just like fantastic to have in our industry, because he's so like hyper focused on these niches, which very few people ever even bother going down. So if you ever want to care about job boards, you want to care about SEO on job boards, you want to care about stuff like this, Alexander Chukovsky is a guy to follow. And here he is on screen. Alex, wonderful to see you, sir. Hope you're doing well. Why don't you quickly introduce yourself, who you, what it is you say, what it is you do.
Hey, thanks for the intro, Hank. Amazing. Wow, I'm not that controversial, I would say. I think I'm more of on the positive side. Lately, maybe I have been more on the dark side. But I'm Alex. I advise job boards, TA tech companies, ATS vendors on topics around SEO, crawling, matching, AI, anything you can think of that is technical. And so I'm very excited to be here and talk about job boards. Job boards are still alive. Yay. We're not dead.
This is what I want to talk about. Like you can obviously go very wide on the topic of TA tech, but for the purposes of today's show, I want us to go narrow, because I don't think anybody can get to the depth that you've got to. So I'd really like to know what you think has happened significantly in 2025 with regards to how job boards have operated. Have you seen any innovations within job boards that were particularly interesting? Have any of the big beasts done anything that impacts job boards in a negative or positive way? What's your general view on 2025 with regards to the scene on the job boards, basically?
Oh man, so many topics. Let's unpack. So first of all, the recruitment market is pretty bad for candidates. There are not a lot of white collar opportunities. That's kind of the narrative on the market. So one thing that I started seeing this year is the explosion of paid job boards, right? So job boards that don't monetize the B2B side, they don't monetize the employer, but they actually monetize the candidate. And there are all kinds of niches you can think of. Remote jobs is, of course, a huge one, but there are all kinds of others that are very interesting. And some of these job boards are adding, I would say, additional values by providing more filters that they give to job seekers, which, of course, are built thanks to LLMs and OpenAI, right? Things that wouldn't have been possible a year ago or 2 years ago. And I think this is a very interesting trend. Like at the last conferences, we had 5 paid job boards, first time ever, right? First time ever. So that's a biggie. That's a biggie for me.
Let's stop press on that. Paid job boards, meaning the candidate pays. And I assume that they don't see any jobs unless they pay like an entrance fee. So imagine this is like an exclusive nightclub. You have to pay entrance to get into the exclusive nightclub. You want to do that because the stuff in the nightclub is better than the stuff you get in a public bar, let's say. So that's the general pitch. Now,
theoretically,
how do they protect that information though? Does it mean that the jobs posted on this job board are not crawled by search engines, I assume? So they can't be aggregated away somewhere else. Is that how it works?
Well, yeah, as you said, some of them are behind a sign-up wall, so you cannot see anything, which means that they cannot do much on SEO. But there are also hybrid approaches where, part of the jobs are available, part of the jobs are behind the paywall, so you don't get them indexed. They don't get scraped. And there are also others where certain filters are paid, right? So you have access to all the jobs, but if you want to do more advanced filtering, like remote jobs that are truly remote and you can work from anywhere in the world, right? Then you have to pay.
That's really, imagine a job board that has all the information, but there's so much information that the signal to noise is it's terrible for the job seeker. But if I pay £10 or $10 or whatever it is, the signal improves because then I can apply a filter to say, actually, the job board recommends these 10 jobs ahead of these other 10,000 because of historical behavior of that employer, let's say, or maybe it would be a recency thing, or maybe it could assess my profile in terms of suitability for match. Like there's lots of things in future. You can imagine it may be worth like sticking a small, I assume the payment is small, right? So that it's like a consumer grade level. If you can afford a Starbucks or something, you could probably afford to do this. I'm guessing.
Yeah, it's like about a couple of USD per week usually. Most of them have weekly payment cycles. So it's not a very expensive service. Yeah.
But still, it's your recurring revenue, right? So it's very attractive. I can understand as a business model. Adam, you wanted to say something, I think? No, I don't think you did.
Just that like LinkedIn's offered premium sort of career features for quite some time. So
is that still there, by the way, folks? I remember there was a there was a job seeker paid thing for LinkedIn for a while, wasn't there? But I haven't seen much evidence or news of it since. I wonder whether they've quietly dropped it or whether it's still something that's ongoing. Let me know in the comments, folks. Have you seen this as a job seeker? Have you been given the opportunity to pay to see further jobs on LinkedIn? I don't know whether that's the case. Adam, I think it is you. But I do believe there's nothing we can do about that. All right. Good stuff. Very, very interesting on the paid job boards. We'll definitely keep an eye on this. This may be something I personally need to take a deeper review on. And it does make sense because everyone is basically trying to get better signal to noise. What else has happened in 2025 on the job board side that you think is interesting, Alex?
Yeah, so what's very interesting is we talk about LinkedIn, the job seeker product. So there's another side of the equation on the B2C monetization side. So we have all of these career service vendors, companies like Career.io, TOHQ, and Resi, like the resume builders. So they exploded, right, this and last year. And right now, most of them are starting to build job boards. Some of them are public, some of them are organic. Some of them are behind a sign-up wall. And it makes totally sense for them because they have exhausted the opportunity for paid acquisition. So now they are coming into the job board space for organic acquisition, and they are competing with job boards. And for them, it's very easy because they have invested heavily in content around career improvements, career path, how to write a resume. And so another competitor for job boards. And I think these products are going to be huge. And job boards should be careful about where this whole thing is going, because they also, like these platforms, they have resumes, they have profile data. It's a significant advantage, So yeah, there's set up in a very interesting way, looking at the future, with the whole agentic search and agentic based recruitment and so on. Also, considering compare them to LinkedIn, they do have a very good profile pool, profile candidate pool to offer. So I'm gonna be really watching after this. I'm very excited about what they're going to do as next steps.
Yeah, I think we've got one of the features of TA Tech this year. I think is that there's category the category distinctions are starting to blur significantly, and that's true on everywhere where you look. Basically, probably sort of AI powered software development has made it cheaper to produce more innovation. And basically everyone can build into each other, where previously that might have been considered to be, a lack of focus, quote unquote, a waste of resources. Now it's actually not a real waste of resources. You might as well throw some time, small amount of time into it and get a product out there. So we're going to see some very interesting innovations coming through on that side also. Okay, what about the big beasts, Alex? A big beasts meaning Indeed, LinkedIn, Google. Like, what have they done in 2025 that you think actually, okay, that's kind of a big deal? Or has there been anything?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I can talk about Indeed for ages. And it's this very weird situation where you gotta love them, but you also hate them for certain things. And I would say recently this news came out that Indeed was one of the first 20 companies that consumed like 1 trillion tokens, something like that, on OpenAI. And early this year, Indeed was had this large announcement of how they're going to build their AI, how they're going to use it for matching, how they're going to build like these niche taxonomies in the healthcare sector, in the software sector. And now we know how they did it. It's a lot of OpenAI that's powering this engine. And I think it's very interesting to see that they are actually right now the leaders when it comes to AI adoption, because they have built something amazing on purely like the job board level. Of course, when you put it into consideration with their whole like life cycle that they support around recruiting, it's even more powerful when we go into matching and like candidate assessment. But yeah, right now everything can happen on the Indeed app. As a job seeker, as a recruiter, you don't have to leave. You're in the ecosystem, and this, I would say, every job board needs to look into that, because it's not only Indeed that can build it. These tools are available to everyone. You can do the same things yourself. So that's very interesting, right? Really go into Indeed, do searches as a nurse practitioner, as a software developer, see how the filters change based on the role that you're searching for. This is live in Indeed US, but given that it's powered by an LLM, it's going to be soon live in Germany, in Italy, in Spain, in France, everywhere.
So for the folks that need to have an early look, it's just to VPN it, I guess. Go stick your location in the US and check out Indeed. I mean, that basically gives us a window as to what it might look like when it does come over here. Super, super interesting. Give us one more view on Google in 2025, Alex. What have they done that impacts sort of the job boards basically, yeah. What have Google done to impact job boards in 2025?
Not much. So that might come at a price. I don't think that they did something significant in the job board space. I mean, they let Google Jobs online, which is great, right? There was a lot of assumptions that they're going to kill it. There were some small UX changes in the beginning of the year that I wrote about extensively. But job boards still get traffic from Google Jobs, so that's good. They're obviously investing money in the product. They clean it up, less spam. But I don't see that it as something exceptional. I think next year, when we see the expansion of AI search, we're going to see some very interesting integrations between Google Jobs and AI search. But maybe we'll talk about it in 1 year.
Yeah, Google are probably the biggest beast, aren't they? And if they manage to sort of crack if they manage to somehow re-gazump OpenAI, which they seem to be well positioned to do, then they can unlock the entire job discovery ecosystem, because they have everything. Basically, they have all the information, and they may in fact have the entire vertical stack now. Alex, listen, brilliant to have you on the show as usual. Of course, we can keep you on forever, but I want to get on some other folks now to talk about the investment side. Thank you so much. Of course, in that 15 minutes, you should know you got to follow Alex Tchaikovsky. Brilliant guy to follow on LinkedIn, of course. Blogs on his own platform as well. One of the real people that you need to keep in touch with. Great stuff, Alex. I'll catch up with you soon, buddy.
Thank you for having me, man.
Great stuff. I mean, he is a bright lad, isn't he? It's like he knows his stuff. It's like more always educational speaking to Alex Tchaikovsky. Okay, let's talk to Kyle Lagunas and George Laroque. Go ahead, Adam.
I like the way that he opened there by saying, so job boards, they still exist, or something like that. Because it's just consistently every year, people predict the death of the job board and it doesn't happen.
They're very resilient in the same way agencies are resilient. They're very quick to spin up. They're very cheap to spin up, and potentially you can make sort of dirty money quick, so to say. Okay, well, firstly, thank you both, Kyle and George, for turning up on Thanksgiving weekend. I mean, basically, it should be a holiday for you. So massive thanks for just spending some time with us, guys. I really appreciate it. Obviously, everyone watching this knows you two already, but why don't we just quickly introduce yourselves for the folks who don't know. George, why don't we go with you first? Who are you? What it is you do?
George Laroque. I'm the founder of Worktech. It's a market intelligence and advisory firm, and we basically focus on looking at all of the macro trends, the workforce trends, the tech trends, and then aligning that with adoption and investment and M&A activity. So trying to create a complete picture for buyers, investors, and vendors on where the market's going. And a little bit more leaning on the advisory side than the content sort of analyst world.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. Great to see you here, George. We have Kyle Lagunas here as well. Kyle, wonderful to see you as well. Can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you and what it is you do?
Yeah, hey, Hung. So my name's Kyle. I am the founder and principal at Kyle & Company. I went out and launched my own analyst firm this spring. It's been really exciting. I have a cool job. I get to study innovation cycles in the space. I get to see what new technologies and tools the solution providers are building, new services. And then I also get to study emerging best practices, persistent problems on the practitioner side. And I get to fit in between the two, mediate, moderate, try and close the gap. It's a lot of fun. And yeah, it's like I said, it's the coolest job in the space. I'm really proud to be a part of it.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. And by the way, we need people like you to kind of to give this type of commentary, being able to bridge the gap between, practitioner side, vendor side, and so on. So fantastic to see sort of you guys continue to trade in this way. Let's talk about 2025 overall investment in Worktech. Maybe we go to you, George, on that, because I think you've been brilliant at providing some sort of a concept as to where we're at with investments. What has it been looking like this year? Like what kind of categories have got the money? Anything that surprised you that you didn't think would happen that did?
Last time I was here and did this, you asked me to show some stuff, so I've got something if you want to see it, or I can talk through it.
You can absolutely show stuff. Go ahead, George.
All right, let me quickly and let me know if you see this, and I'll move this. I just condensed my briefing. So this goes back to 2017, so you can get an idea if this is by quarter, how things have been rolling. We're talking about 2025. 2025, now in Q4, we're still in Q4, so I can tell you we've got about another $1 billion that we've vetted, and it's actually at the top level. Worktech investment through Q3 is, it looks like a good year. Human capital is really drove 90% of all of the investment. So core HR, payroll, that was everything. Now, when you step back and you think about those boom years that Adam pointed out, 2021, 2022, we're on track to potentially be number 3 behind that. I mean, nothing compares the 18 billion we saw in 2021. I've never had a year like that before or since. When we specifically get into overall performance in Q1, TA, because that's what we're going to focus on here today, was anchored by 3 mega deals: Loxo, Job and Talent, and Mercor, who I really put in staffing, given that they don't really provide a solution as much as they provide folks that train the LLMs into the AI marketplace. Q2 shifted with deals like MetaView, Chronify, and looking at things like interview intelligence and scheduling. Q3 was where Signal really started to emerge, and we saw a lot of more early stage deals, but just much less than in the other categories. But it's definitely, very Signal rich. So when I look at in a similar time frame, we're used to seeing TA, which is in the red, always come in behind HCM because, investors like payroll, they like benefits, they like core HR. These are definitely must-haves. TA can be a little more cyclical, but you can see it's really fallen off. We're doing better this year than we did last year, but it's still it's a tough row to hoe, if you will. So Q1 was dominated by late stage and private equity capital. Q2 was more Series A, Series B, building out some interview scheduling and infrastructure. Q3 skewered heavily toward early stage innovation. Ashby's 50 million Series D was a standout there, but investors are really not looking at traditional ATS or platform plays from an investment perspective. They're looking at AI, agentic, sort of building new platforms, not the traditional sort of ATS. Looking at not point solutions as much as data-rich solutions, and owning a workflow component. And this really aligns, I think, to, and I'll be curious what Kyle has to say on the buyer behavior side. What I've seen is folks are leaning in on their platforms. They're leaning in and looking for that innovation from the talent acquisition platform providers, while plugging in areas where there's a real pain. Like, look at high volume or frontline hiring. That's got a lot of AI use case now. Great example, and a place where that investors really lean in. So the investor trend, I'm moving quickly, I know you'll have a million questions. Sourcing and screening are still getting a lot of attention on the investment side. Conversational recruiting, workflow orchestration, and to pick up off Alex's conversation, I would say job boards are turning into marketplaces. What I'm seeing is candidate tools and differentiation in verticalization and in providing things that Adam was talking about. It might be training, it might be skills, it might be resume help, it might be interview training and things like this. But if you're coming to market right now as a traditional job-based sort of ad board, you don't have much of a future today. And I'd say the incumbents need to work on their brands and introduce some of these more rich capabilities. So I'll stop sharing and hogging the conversation here.
No, brilliant stuff. And by the way, folks, if you need access to this type of information, you can sign up to George Laroque's content. I think there's a newsletter going on. There's a podcast series, which is fantastic. Just connect with George and he'll give you some of this good stuff. Really, really interesting to see all of this. And yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, let's bring Kyle in on this. What's your perspective on that sort of information, Kyle? Do you align with George's perspective, and in which areas would you disagree with George's view?
I don't think I can disagree with him anywhere. George always does his homework and he brings the receipts. As we saw today, I'm proud of you for bringing slides on at 9:45 the day after Thanksgiving. I actually messaged George at like 10:30 last night. I'm like, I'm regretting this glass of wine. But no, I think it absolutely tracks. I mean, there's just not as much going on in talent acquisition right now. I think that we've all been feeling it. Whereas on the human capital side, George says like payroll and benefits and admin, like that stuff is still happening. There's still deals, and I think there's still money to be made. But let's not pretend like there's not innovation still going on in talent acquisition. I think that with Gen AI, it has become much easier to ship new features, to build out richer product suites. So there's really some interesting things happening. And maybe it doesn't cost as much as it used to build out new features or to run pilots. So I think that's super cool. I love how dynamic the space is. Actually, what's not covered here are a couple of exits. We've had some really successful exits this year, which it reminds people that there is a path to success. Adam himself had a nice exit with iCIMS several years ago. But this year with Smart Recruiters being bought by SAP Success Factor, actually, I think it was SAP. It was not Success Factors. SAP bought Smart Recruiters, which is a little different. And then, of course, Workday buying Paradox. The last time that we saw major moves like this was the acquisition of Success Factors and Taleo and IBM buying Connexa, Brass Ring. Like that would introduce a huge wave of new entrants, new dollars, new innovation. So I think it's going to be a really interesting year next year. Maybe hiring will not get to peak COVID levels. I certainly hope not. I was on the practitioner side for that. It was wild, but there's still a lot going on. And I think it's a very exciting time, even if TA is not getting as many of the PE and VCs paying attention to us. I think there's still a lot going on.
Yeah, and I think we have to say that basically the excitement of TA in the investment side and excitement of TA tech investment side was very much tracked to that period of everyone's just fighting for this talent. There was no talent available. Everyone's just scrambling for this limited pool. World has obviously dramatically changed since then. There's still this elite level of talent, which is hard to compete for, but most companies are complaining about too many candidates. We're getting flooded with applications, et cetera, et cetera. So then you can see sort of opportunities for companies like Mackie, for instance, or the conversational recruiters, which in many respects are there to reduce the applicant flow. And we saw early today with Greenhouse sort of announcing a few of their smaller innovations, which are all, again, designed to improve signal to noise. So maybe that's where a lot of the focus is going to come from. Different change of labor availability, different shape of companies as well. And so that's going to impact the tooling. Adam, you want to say something?
I want to ask Baz's question for him. So he's asked, what are based on 2025 investment, what are the subcategories of talent acquisition that are sort of the fastest emerging?
I'll take a stab at that, George. Sure. So we're actually doing a study right now of AI interviewers, voice and video, from RecFest US to HR Tech to Unleash World. I had not seen this many new entrants into this category. It's been a long time. Maybe sourcing was the last that had this much. I mean, even majors like Eightfold and Paradox are offering things here. Folks like Alex actually was on George's slides here. I mean, we have just in our RFI, looking at folks who were in market, like exhibiting this year, we have like 17 providers, and they all have clients. So we're really looking at that. I think to Hung Lee's point, it does solve the problem that's in front of us right now, which is a lot of top of funnel. There's real people at top of funnel and not real people, but these AI interviewers, I think that the total cost per interview is something like $3 to $6, depending on what's powering it. So running that versus having recruiters or even RPOs, the economics are just way in favor of voice AI. And it's interesting to see how these different tools are being trained. That's one of the things that we're evaluating right now is Like you can make something feel and sound human, but actually being an expert or even just quality interviewer takes more than just someone slapping together some features. But it is definitely a really rapidly emerging category.
Yeah, AI interviewers of some type. So voice you mentioned. Let's dive into that a little bit, guys. What do you mean by this? Do we mean voice? Do we mean text-based? Do we mean some sort of assessment-based? Where would you? So let's kind of like subdivide the AI interviewer down a little bit. Where would you put your chips, guys?
So just to build on some of what Kyle was saying, and I know Bas was looking for early stage input. I am seeing some significant focus on the candidate tools area. I think the tricky bit is monetizing that per your conversation earlier, and that's in some ways a big reflection on two things. One, the candidate experience is still not where it should be, but also when the market turns like this, and the way Alex even presented it from a job board perspective, they're looking for new monetization, and that we've never seen that play well in charging candidates unless there's value being offered for those dollars. But that is emerging. I think the digital interview tech is still that interviewer, whether it's voice or conversational, whatnot. It has been having a little bit of a moment. I think you're going to see a lot of tuck-in acquisitions there. All of the platforms are, I think, starting to view that as table stakes. So they're all looking at, where do we need to be with this interview capability? Is it a chatbot? Is it a voice? Is it, nobody's really moving toward avatars yet, but that's, got a horizon on it. To Bas's question, the other area that I think is interesting is the supply path and job discovery side of things. So thinking about the shifts that are happening with how jobs are discovered, it's putting the onus back on the employer to have their voice, their brand, their message, their jobs showing up in AI search and in think of, it's, what is it, AEO, not SEO, or GEO, not SEO, whatever the right term is. That's creating a lot of churn right now on where do we distribute the jobs and how do we get them to stand out. And then that apply path is going to get more disjointed than ever. So starting to see some solutions start to emerge there, thinking about how can we provide one apply experience that's maybe transferable. Greenhouse with their tool is putting a little energy toward that challenge as well. The My Greenhouse that we heard about earlier today.
Yeah, it does feel as if some tectonic plates are shifting underneath our feet a little bit, doesn't it? The classic idea that I'm still in the world where, okay, here's a job, a massive paginated experience. You're going to just apply for the ones you think are relevant and then, hope for the best. I think that's breaking down. And we're seeing some genuine innovation. As you mentioned, George, maybe we're getting to the point where, some automated agent might be able to scour the internet for opportunities and, pre-apply for me, let's say. Perhaps the reverse also happens where employers are able to deploy some sort of automation to try and track candidates, like ad retargeting. At some point, maybe even advertising and sourcing kind of merge in the sense that, what is the difference between going to a one-to-one outreach and a hyper-personalized advert? At the end of the day, just one person sees the message and one person might be encouraged to apply for it. So it seems that there's going to be massive change. Whether it happens next 12 months, next 24 months, I don't know, but it feels like this is where we're at, where things are going to change dramatically. Okay, what is the one thing in 2025 that happened in TA Tech, guys, that you think is important that actually a lot of people in the market don't, in the sense that it's just been underreported or people don't quite understand the significance of it, and you think, what, this is going to hit people in some way down a track? Anything like this that you just thought, what, that's important?
I would say that we kind of just passed the buck on job descriptions. They have been poorly managed, poorly written, poorly structured for a long time, and we just hit the Gen AI button and made it easier to write subpar things. really worried about that because a lot of the tools that we have in place to screen for the right fit or like good fit candidates are using AI match. Even long tail keyword knowledge graph, stuff is still going to be looking at a AI generated job description against an AI enhanced candidate profile. And then the AI is like, this looks pretty good. I'm a little worried about like just the AIifying of that very top of funnel. Gen AI isn't the easy. We don't necessarily need easy buttons all over the place, and I think that we put a big one. We're just slamming on. So I'm a little curious to see how that's going to play out.
Really good point, and that's related very much to what Christian's just said on the chat there. Exactly that. What happens when everyone is using AI-generated stuff? We're just stuffing the system with a lot of slop, basically. And does it make sense when you're trying to just process more slop? Like, what good is going to come from that? George, your thoughts on this? Like, the thing that you think is kind of under the currents, but you believe is important that most people don't think are not aware of right now.
Yeah, I may have a bit of recency bias on this because I was just digging deep on this topic, so that I'm about to share. But I think it is, the reason I was digging deep is I think it is this brewing issue, and it has to do with Indeed, and not in a good way. In the last 6 to 12 months, we watched them cut the revenue basically of their advertising agency partners by a third. But at the same time, something that I'm starting to see is they're turning off integrations to vendors quietly and trying to get employers to shift to their interface. And they're now bringing out terms and conditions with employers. And I would say employers are going to get really frustrated when they start to realize they can't put their Indeed candidates with their other candidates in their ATS or in their sourcing tools. They can't get a holistic picture. I think this is, I don't know. I don't know if 2026 is the year that Indeed finally takes a major hit and cedes their position in the market. But I've got too many signals in the market right now saying, one, employers need to wake up, look at those terms and conditions and get ahead of this because their lives are going to get more complicated since it is the number one source of talent, but in most cases. This is brewing and it's going to have a major impact, I think, this year.
Very, very good. I mean, I'd love to get more sort of awareness in this. Go ahead, Adam. Go ahead. Sorry, Adam,
yeah, I mean, I've got one, and it's actually something that went under the went on. Can you not hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Have I gone? I've got one which probably went under the radar, but I'm interested to know from Kyle and George what they think about this. So I would have expected the likes of Eightfold and Beamery and Phenom and iSIMS and a whole bunch of like players that are like have had loads of money and they're like medium to large companies to have been acquired this year, and I expect that they would have wanted to have been acquired this year. What the hell happens to all these companies that probably aren't growing the way that they would have expected to be?
I love you. What a great call. And for anybody who doesn't know, I was formerly at Beamery. And I will just say, looking at all of those players that you mentioned, not just looking through the Beamery lens, look at how they raised. They did not raise to solve CRM, right? They raised on data and on skills and on workforce planning. Like they tried to grow their solution, like their value proposition, and spread out their innovation strategy, like just all over the place. And I mean, you look at a couple of the vendors that you mentioned had some really big deals that they sold, like major global deals for that future stuff of like skills-based everything and talent intelligence, whatever Josh Berson's latest buzzword is, and didn't deliver, and they're just never went live, or they decided to move and use it for their skills taxonomy instead. Like they just sold too much and delivered too little, and they raised too much on just that topic du jour that was more relevant during COVID, or we had more like open checkbooks for during COVID, that completely dried up overnight. None of those are, I think, unfortunately, acquisition targets, because they've got too much to balance, and the revenue's not there.
Yeah, I think they basically raised at not the wrong time, because who could predict that the world would spin the way it did? I mean, the timeline, I do think the timeline just split in 2022. I mean, it's like a sci-fi movie. You know, we just went down a track that no one could have predicted. And if you had a plan for what you're going to do in 2020 and 2021, that plan simply is not going to work. No matter what the thing it was. So yeah, very, very tough, but yeah, great to have you guys on the show. Thank you so much for joining. I could obviously speak to you forever, but I'm going to let you go, because I know that you've got the rest of the holiday. I hope you're still on holiday today to enjoy. So thanks for joining on Thanksgiving weekend, guys. I really do appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of the weekend, and we'll loop back to this very shortly. We want to make sure that we get the best information that you guys can provide. Thank you, George LaRocque and Kyle Lagunas. Okay, we're going to move on. I know this is like running over time, but I wanted to kind of bring on final guest, Claire Bush, because Claire's kind of digging into something really interesting from a kind of an events perspective. And I think that gives us a little bit of a view as to what's happening in terms of like completely fresh innovation coming into the marketplace. What is happening point solution wise, what's happening with innovation with these sort of newer companies. Claire Bush, wonderful to see you. Thanks for hanging on. I know we're over time, my dear. Claire, why don't we quickly introduce yourself for the folks who don't know you? Who are you? What it is you do?
Oh, well, it was a brilliant chat, and I was very excited to sort of hang on for Kyle and George as well. I am, what am I now? I am now really working with lots of talent tech businesses, helping them to really, I suppose, lay the foundation of a brilliant go-to-market strategy, using and working with all of the stuff that they have internally, but also as well really looking at what are the market drivers, what are the ingredients that make that go-to-market strategy framework that's repeatable and scalable in this marketplace, in this day and age. Because yeah, as you just said in our previous conversation, and the previous conversations, we are in a very different world right now. It's evolving consistently and changing every day. So
brilliant
stuff,
Claire. Yeah, I've just shared Claire's LinkedIn there, and definitely go ahead and connect with her. Claire, the audio, I'm hearing a bit of interference in the audio in your thing. I wonder whether you could have a little fiddle with that. It might just be me, but I think it might be a mic thing on your end. Okay, cool. Well, thanks for sharing this, George. Do check the market briefing report on Gated. I love Ungated. Claire, tell us about the latest thing you're doing, because that's very exciting. And that, I think, may give us a bit of, I wanted to bring you in to talk about it a little bit, but also to, this type of sort of event is going to give you an insight as to what's happening with regards to TA Tech in 2025, just as a little bit of a decent signal. So why don't you tell us about that, and what are the products that you're seeing category-wise, if you don't want to speak about vendors particularly, that you think is going to be, has been impactful in 2025?
So I suppose, is my audio any better? Is that better?
Yeah, much better.
So I wrote a quick list out in terms of stuff that I've seen over the last couple of months really kind of come to fruition. Much more, the biggest thing for me is that AI is not just a feature now. It is actually embedded within the platform. So any tech that is saying that they are AI enabled or AI first, just double check your narrative. Make sure it is, please, because you will get found out really quickly. The next thing that I've seen, and really good pals of mine, like and of the show, Martin Redstone, Bennett Sung, talking lots and lots around AI governance. That is deal breaking. It's definitely at that enterprise level, you're not going to win if you are not compliant in all of the big tick boxes. Another really interesting thing, and I think we talked about this years ago, but I'm really, really pleased to see that hiring manager experience is now further up the list of product absolutes. So yeah, really, really taking into consideration that moment between the handover from TA into hiring managers. What's their experience? And again, I think, George and Kyle talked about it. We're in that world where at enterprise level, when you've got volume hiring, you can't possibly miss a second or beat in terms of that handover, and hiring managers need to feel like they've got control, that they know and understand all the data points, and that they are managing that process brilliantly and well as well. So get that kind of moment and relationship nailed. What else have I got going on?
You're talking about, Claire, you're talking about the likes of the paradox and grayscale type of solutions, for example.
Maybe. But yeah, I wasn't allowed to talk about stuff in terms of the brands that I'm working with. But yeah, I am working with Grayscale. And I think the one thing that I really love working with them is that they are really agile in their approach to market dynamics. So they are looking at where is the real need today and building for that in this next sort of 12 to 15 week sprint. They're not waiting for that to be a major marker or pivot or market turn. So yeah, scheduling is amazing. It's brilliant. It's kind of like the thing, AI agents being built specifically for tasks that unlock everything around the hiring manager experience. So yeah, that's
on that note, guys, I just want to say real quick, I mean, the hiring manager is obviously going to appear as a much bigger stakeholder in the TA vendor sort of lens. And the reason why, obviously, TA as a function, specialist function, has been truncated. But at the same time, the hiring manager is the real recruiter when you think about it. That is the person that is hiring. That is the person that is making the selection. And we in TA are kind of fitting in as an intermediary back when the technology basically wasn't good enough for the hiring manager to directly review it. It was too much work. But if the tech is getting better, then the technology will increasingly address the real owner of the recruitment process. I'll give you an example from an outreach point of view. We all know that sort of candidates much prefer to hear from a hiring manager than they do from a recruiter. We shouldn't be upset at this. As recruiters, we should not be triggered by that. That's just a fact. So what happens when technology enables the hiring manager to compose as good a message as a recruiter? Recruiters should not be sending that message. You should be the hiring manager.
It's also pushing, Hung, as well, that time to value piece. So we've talked a lot about adoption, adapting, all of that kind of capabilities within the TA space. But actually, who's talking about it from a greater organization? Again, an organizational foundation perspective. You need to build your tech to talk to everybody along the journey, not just your recruiter. So I kind of feel like there's a little bit of a catch up, but there's some organizations that are doing it brilliantly from the tech side. They are really looking not just at their TA users, but the end user and designing for that journey, which has kind of been another one of my sort of like, moments. And that's why I've decided I'm going to launch an event. But it's not really an event. It's a go-to-market campaign with an event at the end of it. The event is called Talent Tech Expo. It will be happening next March. Just launched it. Website's live. Anybody fancy having a chat? I'm all ears. But yeah, I'm basically looking at how that go-to-market strategy can expand into really answering the buy-sell opportunity for talent tech right now. So it's not just about creating a conversation with the head of TA. It's actually creating an experience where TA, finance, procurement, hiring managers can be involved in the decision-making of the growth and enablement of their people strategy.
Yeah, very good. Claire, why don't you quickly share the link into the chat stream? If it's up and out, there you go. Michael wants the link. Get it in there. Let's have a look-see of this. And yeah, as you know, folks, I'm just pro event no matter what sort of event it is, but this sounds fantastic. So do make yourself sort of get yourself involved in this. TalentTechExpo.com. There you go. Fantastic stuff. Okay, guys, listen, we're well over time, so we have to cut this short, I'm afraid to say. Claire, I do beg your pardon. I wanted to have you on a little bit longer, but we are well over. No, great to see you. And we're going to have to let everyone go because everyone is leaving. And we've got a weekend to get on with. So, folks, enjoy the rest of the weekend. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. We are sort of back next week. We're going to continue the review series. So this episode is TA Tech. Next week is going to be candidate experience, assessment, and DEI. That's what we're going to talk about, what's happened in those three areas in 2025. If you're interested in the show there, make sure you sign up. And if you're following this on LinkedIn, just follow my page. I broadcast this via LinkedIn Live every week. If you're watching this on Crowdcast, of course, follow the channel. You'll be updated on that as well. Okay, that's about it. I'll see you next week. Thanks for watching. Right, there we go. Mate, we needed 2 hours for that, really.
Yeah, it's such a big topic, and there's so much that happens. But honestly, it's been, for so many companies, it's been a lost year, 2025. It's just been like,
it's been
such
tough,
it has. It's been very tough. I mean, I'm in a WhatsApp group with like 100 and something go-to-market professionals in talent tech companies, and like almost none of them are hitting their targets this year. It's been very, very tough in sales in our industry, as is evidenced by the tiny amount of investment that's gone into HR tech, which has come towards talent acquisition. It's
but you know what? I'm blaming Trump. I'm not blaming Trump. He's part of the reason.
I'm blaming AI.
AI is a big part of it, but Trump encourages AI in a weird way because he makes AI a better decision than payroll. It's too chaotic out there. If you talk to anybody who's in sort of import export, it's terrifying to do any investment because you simply don't know what's going on, and that bleeds into every other type of business. On services, so far it hasn't affected us, but in terms of the absolute numbers of people being hired today, jobs being created globally, I think it's into the tens of millions that have been cut off as a result. Jobs that have not been created, and that feeds back into us. Well, anyway,
are you familiar with 20VC, the podcast?
Yes.
Harry Stebbings.
Yes.
So I listen to, they do a weekly sort of show with the guy from SaaStr and a venture capitalist in America, and they talk about what's going on. And very, very clearly, the money that's going into AI in Silicon Valley right now is now going in not for the technology, it's going in to replace labor budget. Yeah. So this is why these companies, who was it? They just Anthropic just raised another 10 billion at 300 and something billion of valuation.
Yeah, I mean, basically,
they're coming for our jobs.
They are, and it's they with a small t, because it basically is us as well. But we all we understand that the world is just massively morphing, and we all need to be aware of what that looks like and look at it without rose-tinted glasses. Anyway,
get on the bus, or you're missing the bus.
That's it, mate. That's it. All right, listen, I'll let you go.
Cheers.
Thanks for joining. Catch you later.